Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about why we combine the closed grip bench press with supplemental tricep work. And by supplemental tricep work, I mean smaller exercises, whether skull crushers, rollouts, JM presses, whatever it is we happen to be doing. Variations of the skull crusher, variations of the JM press. And this is stuff that I do with a lot of my clients. And yes, I have quite a few clients who bench well past 300 at this point, actually a lot of them. So this is what we do for base building, and the difference is of course if one of them has a different set of weaknesses on their bench, then we address that separately. Meaning if I have a guy who needs to do floor pressing instead of closed grip pressing, we'll do a bunch of floor pressing depending upon how they're built, and I have one who's like that. Absolutely have one who's like that, and we do a lot of that. We do tons of floor pressing for him and use his two different barbells that he has back and forth. So for the most part though, I like to use the closed grip bench press for base building on Conjugate. And it's important to remember this is all inside of the context of Conjugate. I don't care what you guys do with training systems outside of it. I'm assuming with a lot of this that you're doing max work and rotating max effort lifts and things like that. All right, you're maxing on some sort of press every week, and it might be your wider grip press. And generally, I'm not a big advocate of wide grip, full range of motion bench pressing. Okay, I'm just not. I don't think it's particularly good for your shoulders. I think it's not good from a stimulus to fatigue ratio. And I'm not saying not to do it. It just always shouldn't be your staple as you start to become a more advanced lifter. I like to see either a floor press there, or dumbbells, or even a shallow board press to kind of take that stress off the shoulder joint at the bottom. All right, that's what I want to see if you're going to go with something of a wider grip. Otherwise, I like to have guys use lots of closed grip pressing. And the closed grip press, again, has its own perks, its own benefits. There are things you can do from an explosiveness perspective better with closed grip. You can use the lats a little bit more. There's a lot that goes on when we're utilizing the closed grip bench. It can teach you how to use your lats more at the bottom of a bench. Okay, it can teach you that. In addition to the fact that it is, again, just better stimulus to fatigue. If you look at the range of motion involved, we have a really long range of motion. We get plenty of good solid tricep activation while still being a chest dominant press that, again, we can get away with much higher volumes of. We can get away with higher volumes of it, and it's easier on our shoulders. And especially for some of us with longer arms. Now, when I make that statement, is that a universally true statement? No, of course not. Of course not. There are guys who find the opposite. But the thing to remember is that because there are some exceptions to something like that doesn't mean that it fits the rule. Okay, and that is one of those cases where there are definitely quite a few exceptions. Exceptions are relatively common, but it doesn't mean that as a general rule it's not true. So we like to use the closed grip press. Well, the problem we have is that with closed grip pressing, triceps can become a limiting factor. They can particularly become a limiting factor on our volume work. In other words, usually if we're closed gripping, a lot of times what we start finding for our rep work, volume work, everything else, we end up feeling a lot of upper chest, actually. A lot of upper chest, a lot of shoulder, a lot of delt. It is a little more delt dominant sometimes in terms of the actual muscle activation. But oftentimes that feeling we get in the delts is because as we fatigue on the closed grip press, the triceps give out. The triceps get weaker and weaker, and the delts start taking over as we get later into it. And you know that that's happening as the bar drifts further up. In other words, let's say you're doing 10 rep sets on your closed grip bench. On the 10th rep, if you are very close to the J-hooks, or you're tapping the J-hooks or the uprights, but you unracked it and you're lowering the bar to a position on your chest that is 6 inches further back. In other words, if you're unracking and you touch the bar to your chest and you're 6 inches away from the J-hooks at the touch point on your chest, like it's 6 inches closer to your feet than where the J-hooks above you are located, right? And you start tapping them on the final reps, that means the bar is drifting up over your face. Well, if that's happening, that means the triceps are too fatigued to complete the set and the anterior deltoids are taking over, because that's the way that we get more shoulder involvement. As we go further up towards the face, the anterior deltoids take a greater percentage of the load, and it lets the triceps take less. So then we feel the delts because they're really doing more and more of the work, and because that puts a lot of stress on them. And then we don't feel the triceps. So a lot of times when we say, hey, the triceps are really limiting your ability to perform this exercise, but then we say, well, I don't feel them, I feel this other muscle. Well, it's the case of your bar path is forcing you to use that other muscle. If your triceps were stronger, you'd be pressing more towards your feet in a more straight line. And yes, I'm aware that we cannot press in a straight line on the bench. Right? There are some biomechanics involved in that. It doesn't actually go in a straight line. Okay, particularly if we're starting down on the chest. It has to do with the rotation of the shoulder joint. But we should be trying to get someone in a straight line. So this is where all the supplemental tricep work comes in, particularly anything that really, really builds that medial head. Where's the medial head? The one inside the arm by the elbow. That head that runs down there, right? The one by your rib cage, not on the outside of your body. That is a big, big deal when we're benching. And so we need to be selecting tricep exercises to hit that. Now, in this case, you see me doing a skull crusher, and I'm doing them slow. Now, a lot of times people say, how come you do some of these movements slow? I thought you were into speed work and power. It's like, because they're different. Some of these, we can't control the weight the same. Sometimes we have injury risks. Sometimes we're just trying to, again, fatigue the muscle. We're trying to fatigue the muscle. Build it up and build work capacity in it under control. And that long amount of volume that we're putting in and the work that we're doing is that over time it is building work capacity in that muscle. Now, obviously, we know that causes hypertrophy. And, people will often say, well, I thought, you talk about the effective rep theory. Well, when we're doing large numbers of sets, like if you're doing 5 sets of an exercise like that twice a week, you're getting quality reps. Okay, if you're taking them to mostly limit sets, you're doing 10 total sets a week, you're getting plenty of effective reps. Keeping in mind, we're probably doing other tricep stuff on top of this, and we definitely are. Okay, so effective reps is not really what we're concerned with. Not what we're concerned with. We're concerned with this point of minimizing joint and connective tissue inflammation on a lot of these movements. Therefore, control is important. Okay, because we're already getting other speed work. We're already doing speed benching. So we're getting that training component already. But what is it that we're trying to do with a lot of these movements? We're trying to build work capacity. Because if our tricep work capacity, size, and strength, and there is a work capacity component, is limiting our ability to do a closed grip for volume, then all our benching strength and all of our benching muscles are suffering. So oftentimes what we're doing from a supplemental lift perspective is saying, hey, can I take that weak link and build the work capacity up so that we can get through the 10 rep sets with really heavy weights for a 10 rep set? Can we get through it without this muscle giving out, becoming a weak link? And if we can do that, we can improve overall performance. If we can build that up and we can put another 20 pounds on the bar for those 10 rep sets and maintain a correct bar path, we're going to build a lot more muscle. We're going to build more muscle overall. Okay, because we are taking the weakest link. And in this case, the weak link is going to have a work capacity component. And we know the higher volumes and higher work capacity training is tied very heavily to hypertrophy. You tend to grow from that, right? Maxing out isn't always as big of a deal from a hypertrophic perspective. The more muscle we have, the better we can max, the more weight we can usually lift when we, again, reach our strength potential. But work capacity will definitely be tied to hypertrophy and vice versa. Doing the work will induce hypertrophy. So we're increasing our max potential also. So we're really kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone by just going ahead and putting in that volume on a smaller tricep exercise and being selective of the tricep exercises that we do and thinking in terms of how is it working the tricep. Okay, how's it working the tricep? And notice on all those tricep movements, I'm not flaring my elbows out. Okay, we're trying to make sure that we hammer the medial head. And the whole tricep does get worked. I want that to be clear. But we want that medial head to take a pretty good brunt of the tension. We want to ensure that it does. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.